moderator and get this thing going, because I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so I love entrepreneurship. Hopefully the morning has been great so far and you're learning lots. Again, today we're going to have this great, we have 3 panels going on right now, but I want to introduce Gloria. And Gloria and I met briefly at another fantastic event, and over the years we've connected and I've followed the stuff she's done. And she really is a fantastic entrepreneur and a force for personal branding, so that's one of the reasons why I asked her to be here. And I'm really glad that she applied, or at least said yes, which is amazing. And so she'll talk a bit more about herself. She'll also introduce the panel. I want to thank the panelists for all taking the time to be here and answering questions and, again, making themselves accessible. And I hope you ask lots of really, really hard questions. Like, don't do the question like, you know, so what's your best moment as an entrepreneur? You know, they're going to talk about themselves ad nauseum. So ask them the hard questions, okay? Really hard questions, okay? So, without any further ado, give a big hand for Gloria Roheimer.
So I'm going to skip the first part of my intro, because why repeat yourself? And we also have a little less time than we thought. Can everyone hear me clearly, by the way? Yeah, awesome. Love this little person, projects really loud over there. So, Bobby mentioned, obviously, I'm Gloria, and I am the co-founder of Wedge 15, which, with my husband, who's in the media panel in the other room, we do branding and business strategy for organizations and for businesses. I'm also the best-selling author of BYOB, and no, that's not booze. It's Be Your Own Boss, and it's the unapologetic guide to being so. Now, I want to introduce these awesome cats, because it's all about them, it's all about you. And the more fun we have today, the more conversational this is, the less university lecturing this, turns out to be, I think the more rich it will be for everyone. So please, don't be shy. I'll turn to you when it's time for some questions intermittently. And again, what's that?
That baby just fading right now.
She's we have our youngest grand in the room. There's a little man. He's too sweet. He's definitely going to pass out. He's passing out as we speak. And I don't blame him. I understand. It's early. So we're going to start with Dawn here on the panel. This gentleman is an experienced and energetic professional who specializes in sales, marketing, and relationship management. Specifically, he does corporate and social events in catering. And so all food, catering related things, this is the man you want to talk to. He's very detail-oriented and extremely service-oriented. He was the first person, right after I asked for the bios, to send his bio in, so I can attest to that.
No ego.
No ego whatsoever, but a very fine tailored Italian suit. John in a fast and changing environment while remaining focused on his clients' needs. And basically, I'd say he's a ninja for event catering. I asked him for a one-liner on why branding is important to him, and here's what he had to say. He believes that branding is best summarized by the words of Katharine Hepburn. My greatest strength is common sense. I'm really a standard brand, like Campbell's tomato soup. He keeps it simple. So that's done. Then we have Katya at the other end of the panel, who is the founder of Positive Fabulous Women, where she brings heart-centered women and business owners together for online and offline connecting. So who knows about Positive Fabulous Women? There we go. That's right. Awesome. And so, like many small business owners, her personal and professional brands are actually very intermingled. So she lives and breathes Positive Fabulous Women, and she still manages to look fabulous on a Saturday morning. So look at her go. And so when asking her about what branding is to her and why it's important, she says, really, when we're clear on our core values, our big why, then we can align that with how we do business. And everyone can understand exactly what it is we stand for. So that's it. We got Mr. Ryan Coello. This is a good dear friend of mine, and he's a personal development specialist who is on a mission to help individuals, especially students and young professionals, to simplify their path to success. Actually, his program is called Engineering Success, if you haven't heard of it, and you should check it out, because he's got some free downloads going on right now, according to Facebook. So with so much knowledge out there that we all can understand, it's overwhelming, he has a way that can help focus and simplify the systems that help people learn and understand how to apply the fundamentals of success. And so he's talking about branding today from that perspective. He didn't send me a one-liner, but I'm going to give you a second to just throw something out there. Why is personal branding important?
Personal branding is important because it works for you when you're not working. And I think a lot of people just kind of sometimes miss out on the fact that you're sleeping. You still have the opportunity to actually get what you do out there and who you are out there. So.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you. Then we have Corey, who's the man over here. Completely recognizable by his fabulous beard, Prada glasses, and Jordan shoes. He's a modern technology expert who's emerging in terms of techno journalism, and he does PR at his company, which is Herscu, and I should say this Romanian. Herscu.
Say it properly.
Herscu.
There you go.
Herscu PR. There we go. His appearances on CP24, Global TV, CTV, and other broadcast outlets have cemented him as the go-to guy when it comes for technology reviews, predictive technology insights, and translating the changing face of technology for consumers like us. So basically, he's a tech geek, and if you have any questions about tech, you need to go to this man. That's the deal with Corey. And his one line around branding relates back to Starbucks. He says that branding is important today because in a very noisy world, if you don't have something that stands out about you, then you'll get lost in the Starbucks line. And so we're here to discover what those elements are.
You're a gold member.
What?
You're a gold member.
Sadly, I'm not a member of any.
Gold member of
Starbucks.
Clearly I don't drink Starbucks.
Yeah.
So, that leaves us, last but definitely not least, with Dr. Jean Kim, who is a global communication strategist, the founder and chief empowerment officer of Global JKM. She has over 15 years of experience empowering individuals from all over the world and has a PhD in language and literacy education from the University of British Columbia and has taught professional communication skills, cross-cultural communication, and public speaking at universities from Canada to Korea to the US. So this is a globetrotter in the house. We're going to get some international perspectives from you today, I'm sure. And when asking her about why it's important to personally brand, she says that your brand is the reputation that you build for yourself and the value that you promise to the world. So remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. And ladies and gentlemen, our fabulous panel. Okay, so I want to start digging right into the juicy stuff. What has been the most challenging thing to do when it comes to personal branding as entrepreneurs? And I'm going to throw it to the first person who feels compelled to share their answers.
One thing I found when I first started out is your personal brand, like Bobby mentioned earlier, is your promise. But in the beginning, you're trying to figure out what the heck that promise is. So what do you actually offer? Who are you? How do you serve others? And I think it was really difficult to really understand that niche, and as you're growing, to help allow your brand to evolve online and even offline. How do you message yourself in networking events? What do you put on your LinkedIn in the little update? So confusing, and I think a lot of you, how many of you are in that boat? You're like, I don't know actually how to brand myself right now. Oh, good. A lot of people have.
Oh, sorry, no. Going along with messaging is also appearance. And yes, as you said, like I have a little bit of an eccentric appearance, but at the same time, you go and you listen to like Tony Robbins, you listen to all those other speakers, and you try to emanate how they are, but then when you're in the real world, you're not like that, and then it doesn't come across as transparent or real. So it's about taking what they're saying and then translating it to yourself, so that when you go out there, it's not like if you see me on the street, it's the same thing as you'll see me in the office or see me out at night. I'm the same person, and it helps bring that like organic appeal to it.
And this is, I was going to say, just add to that, this is really exciting about being an entrepreneur, because a lot of the times you're in companies and there's a lot of a company culture that you have to adopt. And so sometimes, although you have a personal brand within a company, you have a lot more freedom, which can be dangerous or advantageous as an entrepreneur, to go totally left or totally right with things. So I wondered, how have you found that?
You know what, it's been an interesting mix. I've had some people tell me I have to tone it down, some people tell me it's great, and at the end of the day, I've always gone with how I want it to go. I've never really, I've taken suggestions, but I've always, as you can see, I've done my own path, and I've always tried to pride myself in that when I take on a client or if a client hires me, they're hiring me for what I can do for them, and not for how I look. And I don't want it to ever be about that, and I don't hire based on appearance, I hire based on performance, and it should always be like that.
Beautiful.
And I think it's also, in terms of Corey, if he gives off a consistent message of who he is, that core value of his personal brand, if it's consistent, and then at the end of the day, he's earning the right to be himself. He's earning the right to be authentic. And following up on what Ryan said, I also made the very mistake of almost diluting myself and not really doing myself doing myself an injustice as a result of that. Not really having a clear idea of who I am, what I stand for, and as a result, really targeting the niche market accordingly. And I think it's so easy for entrepreneurs, we dilute ourselves, we don't really focus on those who would benefit most from our value. And I think that's a very easy mistake to make. And I'll be the first to admit that I've made that mistake myself. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I've had.
For me, my brand promise is in my company name. Yeah, positive, fabulous woman. Everybody expects you to be positive and fabulous and happy all the time. No pressure. So for me, the challenge was to bring vulnerability into that and keep it authentic, because we're all human and nobody is up and on all the time. So for the first couple of years of running my business, I felt this tremendous pressure to be happy and joyful and bringing positivity, and it was just like, ugh, who wants that? It's like, it's just sickening. So bringing vulnerability and being real, it just not only was a relief for me, but it allows other people and the people that I serve to feel okay about not feeling, happy one day or fabulous. Exactly, be comfortable and accept who you are, wherever that is.
I love that. So Dawn, you do food catering and you do corporate events, and so how is it that you've, in that industry, found a way to create a personal brand for yourself?
The thing, I had one career job prior to starting my own businesses and recognizing that I was an entrepreneur and that I could fly on my own steam, etc. The lady I worked for reminded me that as an entrepreneur or a salesman or however you want to classify yourself, you have as much right to choose your clients as your clients do to choose you. And I think part of, for those of us that have chosen this career path as being entrepreneurs, you get very scared, right? And taking on to what Katya was saying, it's like, I have to be this, and I have to be that, and I have to be the other thing. Well, if I could use some of my sort of bar language, I'd say, I don't have to be an effing thing but what I want to be, because I'm in this for me. Ultimately, my objective is to make sales, right? So let's not, I don't like to divert too far from the point. We're all going to tell you all kinds of philosophies today. This is, as we say in the old movies, this is all about the Benjamins, right? We want to make money.
Yes.
So, now, in order, yes, thank you. Can I get an amen?
All right, I'll amen, brother.
Yes, sir. So, the only reason why we're here today is to learn better and more efficient ways to make money. Now, that's my little philosophical statement, but I'm a professor of special events at George Brown, so there's a couple of points I would just like you, because there's a few people fervently writing here, I'd love to see that. In creating your brand, you can do it on your own terms if you have a sense of purpose that you understand clearly, if you can pull together your story and tell an irresistible story. Nobody cares about what you're selling. You're only sitting at that table because of what you're selling. But what I've told people before, and I know some of you are going to say, oh, this guy's a little corny, but professional relationships are not unlike romantic relationships. You are with a woman, you have to sell her that I am the man of your dreams. She knows that she needs a man. They know that they need catering, right? But they don't care about my catering, it's me. And so I gotta, listen, I got appetizers, I got special events, I got blah, blah, blah. That's what they want to see. But you have to be clear about your message, which will lend clarity to your brand. And if you are clear about your brand and your message, you can sell it, as Corey was saying, in a very sincere, natural way, right? We're here for 5 minutes, you're already laughing. Some of you are laughing at me, some of you are laughing with me. Either way, we're laughing. And I've already endeared myself to you in the first 2 minutes. So have some more fun and understand. Just pick your message, stick to it, don't stick to it, who cares?
I'm curious, so let's make sure we get a good sense of where everybody in the room is. Who here is already an entrepreneur working on their brand? I love that. Okay, so who is actually not, who's just exploring, and be honest, who's exploring entrepreneurship? Beautiful. Okay, good. So we're curious at this point. We're talking about branding, we've dived right in, but who's still thinking, what is a brand? I still don't know what we're talking about. Thank you for being honest. Thank you, great. So who can try to really distill what the essence of what the hell a brand actually is for the audience?
How you want people to perceive you.
How you want people to perceive you. What else?
Your reputation?
Yeah,
How you perceive.
I think your identity and what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Awesome.
And I guess, just from a personal development lens, everything's perspective, right? You can see the glass is half empty, half full. So if you can control that, or not necessarily control it, but if you can influence that in a strong way, now you can't control someone else's perspective, but you can lead them into a certain perspective. I think it's just keeping that in mind, is people are going to perceive you in one way or another. It's up to you to decide how much influence you have on that.
Love it. So I'd love to take a question from one person right now. Who's burning? Sir at the back of the room.
I'm getting is it a sense of essence around an individual's personality that kind of gets your brain going?
How do people feel after you've met them?
Yeah.
When you go and see somebody for the first time, do you leave them with an impression that they want to knock you in the face, or an impression that they want to shake your hand and want to grab a coffee? Seriously. And like, you can have two different kind of personality. You can have that kind of personality that people are like, okay, he was a little bit like that, and you know, maybe it'll take 3 more times to meet them, where I don't not like them, but like they're a little too much for me. Or like in the first time you met them, and they're like, wow, that person just left me, I gotta take notes, and I feel like I need to go read something. And it's all based on how you leave that first impression, and like really want them to have that tingly feeling like they want me to.
And to add to that, think about anything you've bought in your entire life. You've done it for one of 2 reasons, or probably both of them combined: to reduce pain and increase pleasure. That's your motivation. That's all motivation is. So if you meet someone and they cause more pain and you feel very painful after you meet them, not a very good personal brand. If you increase that pleasure, that person added energy to you, you're going to want to buy into what they say, the story they have to offer, and whatever it is they have to offer. So be that person as well, based on whatever your brand is.
One of the most powerful quotes I heard about personal branding is, if you don't brand yourself, if you're not clear about what you stand for, you're giving other people permission to create a brand for you. And sometimes that's not an accurate representation of who you are and who you want to be. So there's that danger of, that misrepresentation. So I think it's so important to be clear about who you are, what you stand for, and what your value to the world is.
And I would add, just, in learning this for the last 6 years, being on my own, exclusively an entrepreneur, and jumping into it with no business background, frankly. One thing that I learned, and as Canadians that I think I'd like to impart to you, is that if you choose, and when you get clear on how you want people to feel about you and what it is you're going to do to convey that, be unapologetic about it. And I say that not just because we're Canadians and we want to apologize for practically being alive, but also because I think that there's something so compelling that really leaves an impression when someone is confident, or when someone's just who they are, and they're not trying to prove something to you or to try to tell you that you're wrong and they're right, but they're just being who they are. They're just being the PR dude with the Jordans and the glasses and the beard. And Katya's positive and fabulous, but she's a human. And she's going to be vulnerable, and she's going to have days where she doesn't feel that way. That's compelling to people, because it's that authenticity that we talk about in branding that matters. So whatever it is you choose, it's going to be for some people, and it's not going to be for other people. Go where you have a resonance with other people.
And I'm sorry. If I could just...
Sorry.
I'm wearing the black suit. If I can add, I think I'd be remiss to say, what we're talking about, my associates here, what they're saying is all very accurate, but I think what we've left out of the equation is that not every one of us are as comfortable in our own skin and are able to present and to promote a brand. And this is where I think the challenge does come for a lot of people. So a little bit of advice, if I can. I'm sorry if I'm too teachy today, but I guess that's what we're here about.
You're in the institution?
The easiest way for you to cultivate your own brand is to write your mission statement. You see? And because, you see, for myself, certainly for Corey and the rest of the panel, I can walk into a room any day, any Tuesday, and I can sell you anything I want to sell you. But not everybody has the gift of the gab in that respect. It doesn't mean you're less intelligent or you have less ability. You just can't necessarily get that message to somebody in as quick a time. So my advice, and what I teach my students all the time, is if you write a mission statement, it's a key tool that's as important as your business plan. Because in a few succinct sentences, you can, in fact, present people with what your brand is. The other reality is that any language map becomes propaganda. And I know that's a filthy word for many reasons, but you sell yourself once you've created your own language map. And afterwards, other people become more and more familiar with your language map, and it becomes easy. You're not trying to do all of these wonderful things. It's there, it's on paper. And that mission statement also allows you to measure your success as you go down your path. Okay? So write it down.
I'll even add to that, sorry.
And then I go after.
Buzzing in right now. Further, people have no attention span. When you're going to talk to somebody and meet them for the first time, expect that they're giving you 30 seconds. So if you can't explain to them in 30 seconds exactly either who you are or what you're trying to sell them, you've already lost their attention. And whenever I meet a client for the first time, if they can't look at me and say to me like, if I say to them, what's your product, what's your app, what's your bolster, it's one of my clients, but if they can't look at me and tell me in 30 seconds, I already go back and you have to go back and refine it, or I can help you with refining it. Because you just have to make sure you're always to the point and just giving them the facts. You have to, like, it's no fluff. Everybody can read through fluff, and the second they think you're fluffing them, they're just going to pretty much ignore you and not want to buy your product again, not want to buy what you're selling.
Love it. Katia, you were burning over
Yeah,
there.
so the thing that's burning here is that your personal brand, when you work on your personal brand, it doesn't start in doing a branding session or marketing or anything like that. It starts by doing your inner work. It starts by getting really clear on what scares you, what inspires you, what stops you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's got nothing to do with business or branding or any expert that can tell you. It's you doing your work, doing your soul work, doing all that stuff. It doesn't mean you can't get help doing that, but it's not a business process. It's a personal process.
And real quick, something to talk about. Sorry, I know you have your hand up. From an inner space, since we're talking about that, one thing that I found, and I fell into this trap, is you have your ego personal brand, and you have your actual self personal brand.
Yeah.
I used to be the guy that loved just collecting friends on Facebook, pleasing everybody, just being the nice guy, and really having that, I want everyone to like me. Popularity contest. And the problem with that is you're trying to please everybody, so your brand becomes so inconsistent because you got to remember there's so many different beliefs and perspectives that everyone has. So if you're trying to cater to all those, you're constantly shifting, you're constantly not confident, because when you talk about who you are, you're going to be like, is that person really like what I'm talking about, or are they judging me right now? What you got to do is shift over to that self-based personal branding, where you get to know yourself and you start talking based on the confidence of, this is who I am, you either like me or you don't, but I can't control that. I can only be this person. This is who I am and how I can help you. And that's why you'll start to, I remember I used to get really upset when people unsubscribed from my list. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And a friend of mine who was training me on online marketing recently, and he's a big influence on this, he's like, why are you worrying? You're not able to serve them. Either you don't resonate based on how you deliver your message, or they're not interested in your message after they downloaded whatever it is that's free of yours. Don't focus on them, because you have all these other people on the list who are subscribed. Cater to them. Serve them. Give to them. And I noticed as soon as I started to really understand that mindset, my own confidence in my personal brand went up.
It's similar to Twitch.
And I want to just sort of jump to a little bit of a different piece, more tactically. Assuming, I'm going to say we're not here balling with $10,000, $20,000 necessarily to go and invest in professional branding as it is, from logo design to web to all the different components that help to communicate your brand. So assuming you have $100, what do you do with this $100 to help forward your branding?
I'll go first. I'll go first because I'm a tenacious, obnoxious, unbelievable sales type guy. I mean, the branding and everything is incredible. And I'll talk about this all day long, but I'll let my associates talk about it. If you have $100 to create your brand, do not even be concerned about creating your brand. Go and buy a $100 new business development list. And you heard me say this before, and some of you are saying, what's this guy talking about? We're at a branding conference. Listen, if you have no clients, your brand is not worth more than the toilet paper you have in your washroom. You need clients. Spend the $100, get the new business development list, and then start working the phones. I forget that movie that Will Smith did that made me absolutely bawl when him and his child were sleeping in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so the part where he's sleeping with his kid in the public washroom, like I'm bawling, right? But the more important part of the movie is that that gentleman shows us in that movie, if you noticed, he doesn't even put the phone down between new business development calls because it takes too much time after you add it up. He just hangs down the receiver, releases it, and dials again. And then he puts down the receiver with his finger, and then he dials again. If you do not feed the pipeline, if you do not increase your level of prospects, you have nothing to worry about your brand because you have none. Your brand, as the good doctor is saying, evolves over time, and it evolves and is defined on the projects that you participate in. True?
So let's take that and break it down a little bit. Because we're talking about, in this case, we're talking about having a brand for the purpose of being an entrepreneur, and therefore, this is how you make a living. You've got to sell things. You've got to grow your business. And so the point of having one is to help make that process smoother and easier. And so Don's saying he would spend that money finding people to talk to about selling. And I know that there's no doubt, I'm already I have two ways of thinking about that. We would have some disagreement about that because there's different ways of doing it. And oh my God, my heart. Oh, okay. So there's different ways of doing that, and so there's the social media marketing world. There's the old school sales and the phone calls. And different people will have different strengths. So you got to be exploring, just like in your brand, discovering which ways are the best and the most effective ways for you to show up to do sales. And so I love that. And that took me about 4 years to get comfortable doing. And to be frank, it hasn't worked for me. All of my stuff, all of my business comes from speaking on stages, being the personal brand, showing up in media, talking to people, connecting one-on-one, and then asking for a sale. Whereas picking up the phone and being cold, just because of the generational difference, like I don't do phone. We do a lot more technical. There's other ways of doing that.
texting.
Right? So I think that the essence, if you're taking away from this, is that it's about getting clients, however you go to do that. So if you have $100 to spend, where can you go use that, I suppose, to get the best chance of that. So what else would you have to say? Please.
Go. You know, you've been fighting to say something.
Go, doctor, go.
I'm a people person. I learn best from the conversations that I have with them, learning from their experiences and whatnot. So I would spend $100 on going on 10 different informational interviews with 10 different people who I see to be my potential mentors. And so if you calculate $5 per coffee, so one for me, one for my mentor, I would spend it on 10 different informational interviews. Because I do learn best from the conversations, learning from their insights and their mistakes. But if I could cheat, and I'm going to cheat, if I could cheat on adding money to the $100, I would actually work with a personal branding specialist. Because I have actually worked with one myself, and it has done a lot of, it was so beneficial for me in the sense that Don earlier said not everybody is comfortable with elevator pitches and self-promotion. And coming from an Asian background, I can appreciate that comment because, humility is so emphasized in my culture, and I also come from an educational background where elevator pitches are almost taboo. So when I first started this whole business of Global JKM, I really had to ask myself, I'm not comfortable with self-promotion, but I have to do it regardless. And so what my personal branding expert colleague asked me, she said, Jean, forget about the elevator pitches and all that. Just answer this question for me. What do you want to remember for? What is a legacy you want to leave in this world? And for me, that was so much more easier to answer than what's your elevator pitch. And so I do not think I wasted any money working with that personal branding expert, because I think sometimes when you're uncomfortable with something, that means it's okay to delegate that task to somebody else or help or receive help or support with that particular task. And in my case, the extra money that I invested in that actually did pay off. So
I love it.
I did cheat. It's not $100, but
So we're going to throw exclusively to the audience for the next half hour till we have to get rolling for lunch. So we're going to start over here with Victor.
Okay, I have a question for you. I know that as entrepreneurs, you're either selling a product or a service, and how important is personal branding versus instead of developing yourself or as a person or your communication? I know all that is important, but a lot of times when we would buy a product from somebody who hasn't that great of a communication skill, but the conviction and is knowledge about the product than somebody who has very high skill, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what is it like? How much do you think? How much importance do you give to the product itself, or the service, or branding? Because I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It
Very much crosses paths, right? So
It's almost like the product doesn't matter. Really, the product doesn't matter, and the brand, if you're one person launching, you are your company. You are whatever you're selling, and until you have that clientele, until you've actually grown the company into something where you have people working with you that you can sort of take that step back and let the company be by itself, you are that brand, you are that product. So you really have to just not only speak the language, but really be passionate about it. There's a difference between selling something for a paycheck and something you believe in it. And if you're not believing in what you're selling, people are going to buy that and you're going to wonder why you're not able to sell it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I understand, but what, like, as you say, like, you know, develop yourself for the brand, but at the initial phase, when your expertise is needed for the product or service.
Are you talking about a tech product?
No, any product.
Okay.
The most, right? Any service or a product as an entrepreneur when you start. When you need so much energy into the product, when you can improve the quality of it so much, just tell me, why should I improve on like the brand?
Gloria,
Or
can I answer?
is
No,
it-
no problem.
Is that okay?
Sure, why don't we throw this and get creative?
Yeah.
Audience
It's
answer.
not necessarily the best answer.
Yes, please.
But a way to think about it is, say you needed to be rescued, and you had 100 people lined up, and a whole bunch of them were like SWAT guys from the army, who knows, and you had Superman standing in the lineup. My guess is most people, just looking at them, and you have a bunch of guys standing there, and then one of them is wearing their big S in the thing, you're going to pick them. Why? Because of their brand. Because we all know who he stands for, that he's amazing. He's all about, that is his mission in life, is saving people. So they might all be super capable of doing that, and they might have put in tons of time and training on all of that, saving the world and everything like that, but most people are going to pick the recognizable. They're going to pick the one that stands out, that they know, and that's kind of how you balance it. Like, you don't want to not do the training and get a, you know, become a superhero kind of level of rescuing. It's that balance of like working on that, but also working on being seen as Superman at the same time.
And I think this is, I would dovetail on that to say that if you've got, and we always have, none of us are that special in our skills and our techniques. What's special is who we actually are. So there'll be 100 people who can do what you can do. Actually, there'll be millions of people that can do and what I can do, and what all of these people can do. But what makes it distinct and what has people pull toward you and choose you and give you money so you can grow your business is your personal brand. So it's distinguishing yourself from everyone else who does exactly what you do. And I would also say don't over-focus on developing a product until you've sold it a few times and keep iterating it.
I remember,
Trying to get it
sorry.
perfect.
Yeah, your personal brand is your secret sauce.
Yeah.
And it's just, it may not everybody's gonna like your
Secret sauce.
recipe, but somebody will. And, you know, you're not,
Not
they
one
might be,
person.
you know, using your analogy, there may be Superman and Batman and whatever, but you like Superman. So you're gonna go towards that. So same thing with your business. There will be more than one person, but it's the people who resonate with whatever you're advertising to be your
And remember,
secret sauce.
people base their decisions on emotion, right? So a great, really quick story. I remember I was promoting phones once, and I think I was promoting a Samsung. This person came into the store, and I was like, you know, here's a new Samsung, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, I want an Apple. But I'm like, look at the like they want an iPhone. I'm like, look at the specs. Like, this is so much better. They're like, no, I want an iPhone. And I'm like, why? They're just like, I love the brand. Right? It made them feel like whatever Apple stands for, and they have a very strong philosophy of being creative, being cool. You buy into that. You don't buy into the fact that it has all these features. Half the time, you don't even know what your phone or camera or whatever can do. You just buy it because you're like, I feel like I'm part of this amazing culture that resonates with me. And if you can get people to buy into that culture, which your brand is a big, well, basically creates, that's when you'll start to see results coming in. And I'm an engineer. I'm very logical. I have a hard time getting to that emotional-based selling, right? So
The thing about it too is that the product itself doesn't change. It evolves, but it doesn't change. You pick whatever it is, right? Where my experience has shown is that you have to play the angles, right? Your personal brand is very fluid, based on with whom you happen to be sitting with, right? Society and branding and salesmanship, you know, we've turned this corner where you're supposed to be so honest and so consistent, and don't change that message because that'll manipulate what your product is or whatever. Listen, I come from, it sounds like a police show, but I come from a long line of salesmen, okay? Listen, when you sit down with an Italian guy, you have no choice but to speak differently than if you sit down with an Englishman. There are cultural issues, there are social issues, there are all kinds of things that you need to bring into. So if I can answer it shorter, because I'm a long-winded guy, the brand evolves. You can change as frequently as you want. I have sold the same product to 5 different people, 5 different ways. you're only trying for the end game, and that's to get their product. Within where we're standing right now, within 5 miles, there's probably 15 caterers. There's only one sitting on this panel right now. Right? So you can manipulate things, and you can be honest in your approach, but you can manipulate it and be, you know, I tell my kids, it's white lies. Right? I know some of the parents won't believe that, but you know, Howard Stern said it the other night on America's Got Talent. If you're memorable, they'll come back to you. And then the product is a gimme. It's the easy part.
And that memory doesn't have to be eccentric, and it doesn't have to be crazy, although that's the, you know, typically the easiest way to go. It can also be in the way that, again, we talked about making people feel about you. So you might just be a really quiet, caring, and consistent person, and there's something about that that resonates with people. So lead with that. Lead with that. Incorporate that into your brand. Incorporate your personality. Take your culture. All of those pieces, each of them is valuable. You just got to decide which combination is most suitable for you and who it is you're serving.
And here's a helpful formula, real quick, is I use for business and relationships in general, trust plus value. You can offer all the value you have in the world, but if you don't have trust, you'll never exchange it. Build that trust first, and your brand helps with that. More people get to know you. Think about your friends. You want to see your friends because you know them, you understand them. So once you understand them, if they give you advice, you're going to listen. Think about your parents. Why do you are so influenced by them? Because when you're a baby, they were giving you things and never expecting anything in return. And all of a sudden you grew up and you're like, my parents are like gods. I'm going to listen to them. Anything they give me, I'm going to take. Right? Because they built that trust with you. So just keep that.
So let's have another question. Go ahead.
One of you guys, I think it was you in the end, you mentioned about the importance of having like a mission statement. Like, I love that.
Sure.
Sick. I have no idea I would even craft it, because there's like a lot of companies that have like really BS mission statements sometimes. So how do you craft something like that personally?
So how to craft compelling mission statements.
Listen, the thing about a mission statement, it is one of the hardest exercises I think that any entrepreneur can take or make. The reality though is that you have to understand yourself, right? Like, I hope I'm giving everybody the impression here that I'm about as honest as they come, right? You have to start with what you know. And then you can superimpose, think of it as just different layers. If it's a particular product, you take yourself and then you put the product. And then what does the product do? And then you can incorporate a little bit of that. And then you have to think also in terms of timelines, right? And what is the ultimate objective, right? I've told my staff for years, we're not selling catering and special events. We're selling experiences. So part of our mission statement says, experience creates memory, memory invites tradition, and the formation of relationships that last for years to come. What a crock of shit. Right? But every time I say that to the mother of the bride who's planning the wedding, she's like, oh my God. My sister is going to love coming to this wedding, and that's the money shot right there. When the mother of the bride says, I love you, and that's amazing, ching, 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 ching. Right? It's like going to the casino. Don't take me wrong. I have more sincerity in my approach. I want the best for everybody. But I'm not going to work. Point of fact, my ex-wife, enough said I was greedy. I said, I'm greedy. Really? My response to that was, if I'm going to trade 12 to 14 hours a day for work, aren't I going to maximize my return on those 14 hours of investment? I'm not greedy. I'll still finish at 8 o'clock. I'll still take the kids for a friggin' ice cream cone, whatever. But I'm trading it for the maximum amount of money I can. And so your mission statement, to bring it back on point, is to just simply layer all the aspects, know what your end game is, and create that language map. In and of itself, it will change over and over and over and over and over.
Can I break it down? Just
Go for it.
Sorry. If you're sitting down for the first time and trying to like throw down what it is that you do to make it, put down 20 words that describe what it is that you do. From 20, go down to 10, go down to 5, go down to 4. Throw some your vowels and your words in there, just to like, so you can say it in less time. And that way, like for Heru PR, to the awareness experts. So you know right there, what is PR, period. I don't have to give fluffy words, I don't have to give buzzwords, I don't want to because it gets away from the point of what I do. I can say in 3 words exactly what my business does, and you understand it, period.
Beautiful. Thank you.
But is the mission statement for yourself or is it for your clients?
They're the same.
It's both, the same thing.
Remember, people buy what's in it for them, right? So you want to direct it towards them in a way that they can say, I want that.
All right, we've got a question over here. Thank you.
So what's the biggest mistake you made in regards to your own personal experience and your personal branding?
Oh, definitely for me, casting my net way too wide. It was really doing myself an injustice. So I really had to do some soul searching, talking to a lot of mentors, and also with the help of a personal branding coach, I had to really go back to my mission, what I stand for, what's the unique value that I have to offer to the world, and then identify my target community accordingly. Because, like I said earlier on, it is so easy to dilute yourself, and so I urge you not to make the same mistake that I did.
I was even going to say undervaluing.
Yeah.
When I first started doing this, I had the power of Eventbrite, Facebook, Twitter, so I didn't have to put the money into building a list. I put the money into paying for parking when I got downtown and my appearance to make sure that a mentor said to me, keep your shoes clean and always wear a nice watch. It's the first 2 things people look at. So I always made sure that I had clean shoes on and I had a nice watch on. To this day, my shoes will always be sparkling clean and my watch will always be sparkling clean. And
I don't think you can really make too many mistakes.
No,
Sorry,
I'm just sorry. I did a lot of free work. For a long time, I did a lot of free work. But I did free work for the right people who helped me grow my business. I did free work for the wrong people who ended up screwing me over. The biggest mistake I made was working too long with the wrong people and letting them allow me to not value myself while the other people helped me and to slowly just branch myself the right way.
I don't want to sound too Oprah-esque, but you know, the mistakes is what makes the entrepreneur. It makes us a human being. You know, also, and putting your neck on the line. Like Corey's absolutely right. I did a lot of free stuff that just kills you, and you work with the wrong people. But by putting your neck out and be willing to make mistakes is where the sweet spot is, right? I sat down with the people years ago, and they said to me, can you in fact cater for 25,000 people? We want to hire you for the Virgin Music Festival. And so after I realized that I should have been wearing a diaper, I said, yeah, I can do it. Absolutely I can do it. With confidence and zest and everything. That led to me on the island catering for Virgin Music Fest, which inevitably led to me standing in an empty field with Richard Branson and shooting the breeze about his brand. And then connectivity through that led me to other events. So you can, in fact, make mistakes, but the reality...
Can I pause and ask you, because I think this is such a poignant point that I hear. I mean, did you know, were you sure on how you could deliver at that point? Or did you say yes before you knew how?
The greatest minds I've ever read about and seen didn't have the answers when they set out to find them. So when somebody said to me, can you cater for 25,000 people? I'm like, absolutely. And it's the same thing, and I go back to my point from before, it's the same thing about romantic relationships, interpersonal relationships. You don't go up to a hot chick and figure, I can't get her. You walk up to her and you know you can get her, or you're not going to get her. And I know that's, you know, I'm being funny, of course, for the sake of the conversation, but with any relationship, if you walk up thinking you're not going to get it, what are you going to get? Nothing.
I would add that my biggest mistake, and this probably resonates with a lot of people, was thinking that my brand was about what my credentials were. Thinking that it was like, oh, Gloria, Regina Roheim, the MA candidate from blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Very few people. In fact, it became more separating because I started creating this like elite-sounding person who's actually really personable and very approachable, and it totally didn't connect. So, and I wonder how this served you either, because depending who your clients are, and this is the key. If I'm serving, and when I do serve one of my clients, which is the University of Toronto, that matters this much. Everyone else doesn't matter at all. What matters, and funny enough, the thing that drove the most business to our business was my husband's and my wedding video. We did a dance video for 3 minutes. We put it online thinking it would be fun for friends. Next thing you know, people are like, oh my God, I saw this video, my friend forwarded it to me. I don't know what it is about you two, but I love your energy. What do you do? And then there was business. And that happened time and time and time again. And so here I am thinking, what the hell does my personal marriage and my wedding video have to do with the business I'm doing. What? I'll tell you what. It's that underlying feeling that allows people to connect to the human being and go, there's something different about that. Like, who does that? That's a little distinctive. But that wasn't the purpose when we put it out. So that was actually a mistake that went well. And that's...
Real quick to add to that, Gloria. So one of the things I found is I always tried to be perfect. I'm a Leo. I have a very big stubborn ego, right? Pride, a lot of pride. So it's showing on Facebook, hey everybody, look at all these things. And I used to do that for so long. And as I became an entrepreneur, I was like, what if I just start sharing the things that aren't going right? One of my biggest blog posts to date that got like thousands of shares when I posted about I was broke. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt because I screwed up on my business. I spent a lot of money trying to create an online tech business. And I just shared that with the world and I said, you know what? I'm broke, but here's what I learned. I actually have a lot of other things that I haven't been paying attention to. So if you feel like you're not making your money or whatever it is, I'm not as good as this kind of money thing. You still have a lot of other things in your life that you got to look at and realize how grateful you can be. So many people, I was just talking to someone in the hall, a good friend of mine, he's like, I still remember that post, he brought it up. And he's like, it just allowed me to feel like I knew you on a deeper level than just Ryan is doing this, speaking here, doing. People don't like that because when you're on a pedestal, they feel like they can't be part of what you're doing or have the same belief system. So they push themselves away. But if they see that journey of how you got there, now that's that underlying thing Gloria talked about where you can't really see it or feel it or see it or talk or logically talk about it, but you can just relate.
I think it's a fine balance. I mean, I'm all for being real and vulnerable and all this stuff, but there's a fine balance on how much you want to air your dirty laundry, especially with social media and everything. So you have to find what works for you. And you don't have, you can air that dirty laundry maybe after you've washed it. But it doesn't have to be day by day, minute by minute. I'm struggling here, I'm having a hard time here, because, you know.
Again, you want them to trust you and have confidence in what you're doing.
It will damage your brand if you're constantly struggling every day.
And especially if you're not sharing how you made it through those struggles.
Yeah, but it's the lessons, right? It's the lessons that people will, you know, will be inspired by.
Yes.
Yes, sir, the education thing, I just want to throw it in there. I'm 30 in December. I finished my first diploma in May. I've never had I've never had any formal education, and it took me applying for a job in communications for them to tell me, you have all the experience and the education. And I'm like, you know what, I don't want anyone to tell me what I can't do. So I did my business as a contractor, and I took schooling while I was building my business, to the point where pretty much when I graduated, I incorporated my company, and now I can say that I'm a publicist. But I only recently did it. But when you meet me and we sit and talk, like, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, how long do you think I have? One guy said to me yesterday, 6-7 years. I looked at him like less than a year, and he's like, shut up. You know, like, it's what you represent. It's not about education at all. Education is very taboo. Like, I really feel like it's one of those things where unless you really, no, what?
Let's go. Go on.
Oh, sorry. No, education, it's when you want to do something, you go get educated in it. Don't feel like you have to go to school just to do something because you're wasting your time.
You know, it's funny.
So, the PhD, what do we have to say about
It's really interesting because I was just having a phone call with my dad who's back in Korea, and he was saying, oh, I just saw your article on Korea Times, you know, I'm so proud of you for founding Global JKM, but I wonder how it would be if you could get hired by U of T. So, you know, that is such the Asian in my father, which I know it's endearing, and I get it because I understand the cultural background, and a lot of the Asians in here are probably nodding their heads, you know, you can relate. But I think for me, I'm proud of the fact that I've worked my ass off to obtain my PhD. That's something that, you know, that's not going to go away. But I'm very strategic about who I choose to highlight that with. For instance, if I meet a client or a potential client who comes from a cultural background that reveres higher education and the fact that I was a professor, then I will milk the heck out of it. But if I'm talking to a potential client, because my target market is global professionals, then I will definitely highlight the fact that I've lived in 10 different cities across 7 different countries around the world, so I have hands-on experience with regard to cross-cultural communication and so on. So it's more about, I'm not being untruthful about any aspect of who I am, but I choose to be strategic about which areas I choose to highlight.
And this is what you call leverage points in your brand.
Exactly.
Dawn was talking about this too. You know, you sit with an Italian, there's a certain way you position it. And when you sit with, you know, someone from Korea, from, let's say, the high delegation, guess what? PhD. You know? And that's just the game, and this is called social intelligence, and we all have our own learning to do in this realm as we bump up against, you know, life and experiences. But you got to, at the end of the day, know all that aside, at the core of the core, what is the essence of that personal brand? What do you stand for, and what's your commitment in the work that you do and the people that you serve?
It's to finish what my two colleagues are saying here, it's an evolution. And Victor asked about the brand, and all of you, of course, are here for the brand. But, you know, of course, enough about me. Let's talk about me for a second. I said,
keep it in mind, we have 3 minutes.
I know. I told you I was a professor at George Brown in hospitality. I am not a formally educated or trained teacher in any way. I'm a dishwasher turned waiter, turned maitre d', turned entrepreneur, caterer, event planner, turned professor. I laugh every day, right? But the best lesson I learned, if I can leave you with this point, if I may,
Sure.
I didn't learn from anybody so spectacular. An electrician that was building one of my restaurants saw I was all pissed off and down one day and I couldn't make any sales or whatever. The lesson I can share with you is what he shared with me. If you wake up every day and you remind yourself that you're unemployed, and you grab your toolkit, which has a hammer, and you swing that hammer, is there a high probability you're going to hit something that day?
Yes.
Right. And I think that's probably a consistent point on all of us here is just wake up, remind yourself that you're dead in the water, grab your hammer and start swinging it, and hope that none of your kids are around.
And enjoy the process. I think, you know, you could be looking at, a lot of times I looked at like, man, I shouldn't have done that with my brand. Don't do that. You have to go through that experience to appreciate another experience.
Say that.
So wherever you are right now in your personal branding journey, be happy with it and be thankful that you've actually got to experience different aspects of it, and it's moving you closer to what you really want for that personal brand.
I think that's a perfect way to end, and sadly we have to because it is 1 o'clock and we've got to eat. So I first want to say,
Can I just say one very important thing?
we're going to give it
I'm actually going to stand up for this. I'm going to stand up for this because I think it's important. First of all, can we have a big round of applause for Gloria for being such an amazing an applause because you chose to be here on a Saturday morning on a summer day. So can we have an applause for Thirdly, I have no doubt that throughout the day you're going to be taking part in some very high quality workshops, listening to speakers, being inspired by them. And by the end of the conference, you're going to be feeling all pumped up and feeling like you've gained a lot of insights as a result of the conference. What I would love to say is, while insight in and of itself is fantastic, insight followed by action is truly powerful, can be truly powerful. So I'd love for you, I strongly encourage you to do, is go home, sit down and ask yourself, maybe not tonight if you're really tired, but over the next couple of days, ask yourself, what are the insights I've gained as results of today's conference, and more importantly, how am I going to implement those insights so that I make sure that I have actions taking place in my life? And who am I going to ensure that with, or how am I going to ensure that those actions actually do take place? So I really urge you to do that because insight followed by action can be life-changing.
Very successful. Every successful business person always went through a rain shower. Everybody did.
Yeah. And some more recently than that. So, I want to award this to this gentleman who patiently waited but didn't get his question answered. Oh. It's a card for a deck of cards as far as I understand.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. So we have sandwiches outside for you guys, but we do encourage you, if it's not enough, to go around and support local businesses. And